It's a long and complex story. It turned out that there had been changes, management changes, policy changes in moving children from intensive care to medium intensive care. Okay, so the thing to focus on here is change in hospital policy leading to very vulnerable patients suddenly dying on a place where they had not died before, where they usually didn't die, where they were supposed to get better and go home. You may have heard that phrase before. Now, the doctors in charge there presumably knew about the policy change. Suddenly there were being more deaths on that unit. People were gossiping about a nurse who seemed to be always there when they happened. And of course, she was working very hard, probably paid by the hour, doing overtime, doing nights, somewhat like Lucy Letby. I believe it was the nurses who first started gossiping about nurse death. But Lucia was always there. She always seemed to be there when there were unexpected deaths and collapses, and there were often unexpected deaths and collapses, certainly more than like normal because of the changes I told you about. I mean, the point of putting very vulnerable children from intensive care to medium intensive care was so they could go home and die there. They were never going to have a normal life, and it only came out like 6-7 years later. The people at the top of the hospital had a fantastic social network who believed, naturally, as one would when one first heard the news, as most people did when they first heard the news, that there really was a killer nurse active. The nurses were gossiping. Everybody knew there were more deaths than usual and didn't know what was going on. And then there was an event, a trigger event. But there are incredible similarities with classic witch hunts. The same social dynamics, the same psychologies, the same reaction, a social system in stress and bad things happening and identifying what seems to be a very evil person causing it. The initial trial was based on statistics. The prosecution case was based on statistics because they had not found any direct medical evidence. Lucy Letby, 7 years police investigation, did not find any direct medical sort of proof, you know. We could discuss about the insulin because that's a moot point, because some people have said that this is absolutely definitive. It means there was a murderer there. Of course, the insulin there was not proof that Lucy had done the murdering. So it's not direct evidence that Lucy did anything. So there was no direct evidence that Lucia had done anything whatsoever. The prosecution honed in on statistics, and in two senses. First of all, in the sense of some numbers, which something like the spreadsheet, an exhibit. The number of shifts with an incident, you know, like the spreadsheet changed in the Lucy Letby case. 9 incidents. And I can tell you it was not a coincidence, and I can tell you why it was not a coincidence. The reason is, just like Lucy Letby, those events are called suspicious incidents. They're called incidents, and they're called suspicious because Lucia was there. So the numbers, in this case, damned Lucia, 1 in 342 million, which was supposed to be the probability that such a concentration of events in one nurse's shifts could occur by chance. So it's like the probability of what we see if it had been chance. And this is a very important similarity between the two cases, very, very important. And it has a pernicious side effect because the spreadsheet, like it convinces people, it convinces medical experts who are evaluating unexpected, unexplained events becoming suspicious because Lucy or Lucia was there. From the written reports of medical experts, that they actually judged some events to actually be suspicious because Lucia was there, and because they knew she was always there when bad things happened. We know that the prosecution and the defense in the Lucy Letby case both got advice from a statistician, and both wanted probabilities to be calculated, and in both cases decided that they would not use this because jurors wouldn't understand that. And not only jurors, judges wouldn't either. She was convicted first on the grounds of a statistical calculation, together with, writings in her diary, an attempt to destroy her character, all the circumstantial evidence, as in Lucy Letby case, the kind of things which destroy a person's character and make a jury think she's a liar. And, inappropriate behavior, like crying when she shouldn't cry and not crying when she, damned if you do, damned if you don't. In 2003, it was discussed a lot, and people started arguing about it in the newspapers. Anyway, both the prosecution and the defense appealed against the convictions, which were so many life sentences for murders and attempted murders, and they both appealed to a retrial, to one proper retrial, but of course again inquisitorial one, at a higher court. They did not use the statistics anymore. Of course, they used the fact that it was obvious that all the bad things were happening when she was there. Lucia wrote some odd things in a sort of florid language. She was actually practicing to be a crime writer, and she had Stephen King books in her bedside bookcase, which was also evidence of her evil character, as well, of course, as some syringes she had at home. Oh my God! I mean, it's the list of evil things, circumstantial things, is kind of the same. But anyway, there was proof that Lucia had murdered. Therefore, we don't need so much strong evidence in order to prove that she also killed the next baby down the line. The trouble is when you apply it to either Lucia or Lucy, because the premises are not true. To begin with, it's not certain that Lucia killed baby Amber, and it's not certain that Lucy killed baby A or whatever. It's only, according to the court at that moment, beyond reasonable doubt, which basically means 95%. And then there's the similarity, because actually the only similarity in the Lucia de Berk accusations was that they were all so different, which was, of course, again, proof of how evil she was, because she could use different methods every time. And she was so skilled at this that sometimes they didn't even know what method she'd used. Right? So the lack of evidence is used as evidence for proof. So when people say Lucia de Berk was convicted because of statistics, it is actually not true, because the actual conviction goes out of its way not to use statistics. They used medical evidence, and they used this so-called chain argument. So all kinds of technical things which you wouldn't expect a jury to understand. Police were rightly believing Lucia was an evil killer, and they were doing their best in their way. And they weren't deliberately trying to mislead the judges and the public by not telling them some of the things they'd seen. Lots of people are convinced that this was probably a miscarriage of justice and that there ought to be a retrial. The trump card pulled out by authorities and some commentators are that in order to respect the parents, we should not be doing this. Now, I, bleep, 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 think that in order to respect the parents, we have to do this. The parents need closure, and it's actually overwhelmingly clear that babies were killed by incompetence of doctors who went on to accuse Lucy Letby. Now, they can shut their eyes to that, and they can put out, their lawyers can say whatever they want to say, and my heart breaks for them, but they have been manipulated and used and lied to for a long time. So I can imagine it's going to take them a long time to change their minds.